3 days felt like 3 heartbeats when war was coming. I stood in the training yard watching Elara practice with wooden swords, her 9-year-old body moving with the natural grace of royal blood. 5 years had transformed the terrified 4-year-old I'd caught midair into a confident young princess. But sometimes when the light hit her violet eyes just right, I still saw that frightened child falling through the mist, screaming for someone to save her. Commander Petra corrected her stance, praising her improvement, and the girl beamed with pride that made my heart ache. She'd grown so much, learned so much. Every day she became more like the queen she was destined to be. And every day, I felt the weight of my responsibility settling deeper into my bones. The pendant against my chest pulsed warmly, as it had done increasingly over the past day. I'd learned to trust these pulses. They'd warned me of 3 assassination attempts over the years, guided me through 2 political coups that tried to destabilize Aldrich's rule, helped me sense danger before it struck. The pendant had become like a second heartbeat, a constant companion in my role as Elara's guardian. But this pulse felt different. Urgent. Insistent. Almost hungry. I pressed my hand against it, feeling heat radiating through the fabric of my robes. The silver setting had always been cool to the touch before, a gentle presence. Now it felt feverish, as if something inside it was waking up after a long sleep. "You should rest," Aldrich said, appearing at my side with the silent grace of a king. 5 years had deepened the lines around his eyes, etched by the weight of ruling a kingdom that had nearly torn itself apart. But they'd also softened something in him. The grief-mad warrior who'd returned from the Northern War had gradually transformed into a ruler who smiled, who listened, who sometimes sat with his daughter and her guardian by the fire and looked almost peaceful. More than that, though neither of us had spoken of it directly, there was something else in his eyes when he looked at me now. Something that made my heart skip and my breath catch. Something that felt dangerous and wonderful in equal measure. "I can't rest when Duke Casimir is 12 hours away with 500 soldiers," I replied. Though exhaustion pulled at my bones like iron weights, I'd been using the pendant's power constantly for the past 2 days, enhancing the palace defenses with ancient magic, checking on Elara every hour, sensing threats in every shadow, coordinating with the mages to strengthen the walls. Each use of the pendant left me more drained than the last. I dismissed it as stress, as the natural fatigue of preparing for war. But now, watching Elara laugh as she finally managed to disarm Petra, I felt a tremor of unease. Aldrich studied my face with the intensity he usually reserved for battle strategy, concern darkening his violet eyes. "The pendant is glowing brighter than usual. Is it draining you?" "It's protecting us," I said firmly, pushing away the flicker of doubt. "That's what Queen Seraphina intended. When danger comes, the guardian uses the blessing to defend the bloodline. It's worked perfectly for 5 years. At what cost to the guardian?" Aldrich asked quietly. And there was something in his voice that made me look at him sharply. Fear. True fear. I'd seen Aldrich face down armies without flinching. But the thought of me being harmed put that expression in his eyes. Before I could answer, Elara ran over, her wooden sword clutched triumphantly. "Mira, did you see? Commander Petra says I almost disarmed her." "Almost doesn't count in battle, little princess," I teased, ruffling her blonde hair. But my hand trembled slightly, weakness seeping through my muscles, and I pulled it back before she noticed. The pendant pulsed again, and this time pain lanced through my chest, sharp, brief, gone before I could react. Like a needle of ice piercing my heart. I forced a smile. "You're getting strong. Your mother would be proud." Elara hugged my waist, her face pressed against the pendant. For just an instant, her expression flickered. Confusion, then discomfort. She pulled back slightly, her brow furrowing. "Mira, the moonstone feels strange. Like it's too warm. And it's humming." "Do you hear it humming?" Cold dread crept up my spine. Children with royal blood could sometimes sense magic that adults missed, their connection to the first monarchs giving them perception beyond normal senses. "It's just working hard to keep you safe," I assured her, though my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. "Go finish your training. We'll read your favorite story tonight before bed. The one about the first monarchs making the covenant? Elara asked hopefully. Whichever one you want, I promised. As Elara ran back to Petra, Aldrich caught my arm, his grip gentle but insistent. She felt something wrong with the pendant. And so do I. The magic radiating from it has changed. Darker, more aggressive. Let me call the royal mages to examine it. Mage Theron studied under the first monarch's priestesses. If anyone can verify the pendant's authenticity. There's no time, I interrupted, pulling away. Casimir arrives at dawn. The pendant is our best defense. Seraphina's blessing has saved Elara more times than I can count. I trust it with my life. That's what worries me, Aldrich murmured. But horns sounded from the watchtowers, cutting off further conversation. The scouts had returned. The enemy was closer than expected. The war council met in the great hall as sunset painted the sky blood red, an omen that made the older nobles mutter nervously. Magistrate Roland unrolled maps showing Duke Casimir's approach from 3 directions, a coordinated attack meant to overwhelm our defenses. 500 warriors, Commander Petra reported grimly, her scarred fingers tracing routes on the map. Well-trained, well-armed, and fanatically loyal to Isabeau's memory. They believe Elara is cursed, that her bloodline corrupted Isabeau and caused her death. Some of them are former palace guards who served under her, warriors who fled after her execution. They're not here to conquer. They're here to erase the Thornwood bloodline entirely. Religious zealots make the most dangerous enemies, Elder Thaddeus added, his voice heavy. They fight not for gold or glory, but for belief. They think they're serving the mountain gods by destroying what they see as corruption. Can we hold them? Octavia asked, her hand resting on her sword. She'd fully recovered from the poison that had nearly killed her 5 years ago, and now she served as Aldrich's war advisor and captain of the royal guard. With our current forces? Maybe. Petra's scarred face was hard with calculation. But casualties will be devastating. They have siege equipment, dark mages, and worst of all, they have conviction. They believe they're purifying the kingdom. Soldiers fighting for faith don't break easily. We have 300 warriors, another council member said nervously. 300 against 500, with them holding the siege advantage. Even with our superior position, the odds are against us. Then we convince them otherwise, Aldrich said firmly. We show them that Elara is blessed, not cursed. We show them. No. Welcome to Floxy's Shifter Romance Tales. Before we dive in, I'd love your support. Can we hit 200 likes on this story? Also, subscribe, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. Your engagement means everything to me. The pendant around my neck suddenly blazed with light so bright everyone in the room flinched, shielding their eyes. Pain exploded through my body like lightning through my veins, driving me to my knees. The stone floor rushed up to meet me, and I barely caught myself on my hands. Images flooded my mind, visions that burned behind my eyes with searing clarity. I saw the palace burning, towers collapsing, Elara screaming as dark magic consumed her. I saw Aldrich falling in battle, Octavia's body broken on the courtyard stones, darkness swallowing the Thornwood bloodline like a hungry beast. And underneath it all, I heard a voice whispering instructions. The pendant was showing me how to prevent this future, showing me exactly what needed to be done. Mira. Aldrich was beside me instantly, his strong hand supporting my weight. What's happening? The pendant is showing me, I gasped, my voice strained and distant. It's showing me how to defend the palace. There's ancient magic in the foundation, wards placed by the first monarchs when they built this place. If I channel the pendant's power through them, I can create a barrier that will hold Casimir's army back long enough for reinforcements to arrive. I looked up at Aldrich, and something in my eyes made him go cold. We have allies 3 days north. If we can hold for 72 hours, they'll arrive and trap Casimir between our forces. But the barrier requires tremendous power. The pendant can provide it, but I'll need to stay connected to the wards, channeling constantly, keeping the magic stable. At what cost? Octavia demanded, echoing her brother's earlier question. She knelt beside me, studying my face with a growing alarm. Mira, you look half dead already. Your lips are blue. You're trembling. If you channel more power, then I'll be fully dead, I finished bluntly, though saying it aloud made my stomach turn. But Elara will live. The kingdom will survive. Isn't that what guardians do? Trade their lives for the ones they protect? The roar came from the doorway. Elara stood there, having slipped past her guards again, something she did with increasing frequency as she grew more confident in her abilities. Her violet eyes blazed with tears and fury, making her look heartbreakingly young and impossibly ancient all at once. The weight of royal blood showed in moments like these, when emotion and power collided. You can't die, Mira. You promised. You promised to teach me to be queen. You promised to stay. She ran forward, dropping to her knees beside me, her small hands gripping my robes. I don't want a barrier. I don't want to be safe if you're dead. Please don't leave me like Mama did. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. I'd been so focused on protecting her from external threats, I hadn't considered how my death would wound her from within. She'd already lost her birth mother. The thought of losing another mother figure would devastate her in ways no enemy army could match. Elara, sweetheart, I began, but she cut me off. The pendant is lying, Elara said, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried through the entire hall. Her royal blood gave her presence beyond her years. It feels wrong. Feels hungry, like it wants to eat you. It doesn't feel like Mama Seraphina at all. She loved me. She wouldn't ask you to die for me. Silence fell like a physical weight. Aldrich's expression changed, hardening into something dangerous. Mage Theron, examined the pendant. Now. An elderly man stepped forward, one of the few royal mages who'd survived Isabeau's purge 5 years ago. Theron was ancient, his grey beard reaching his waist, his eyes clouded with cataracts but sharp with magical perception. His hands glowed with diagnostic magic as he approached me, weaving complex patterns in the air. His expression grew increasingly horrified with each passing second. The glow intensified as he probed deeper, and suddenly he jerked back as if burned. Your Majesty, he said slowly, his voice shaking. This pendant is not the original blessing of Queen Seraphina. The world tilted sideways. What? I breathed, my hand flying to the pendant that had guided me for 5 years. 5 years of trusting it. 5 years of using it to protect Elara. 5 years of believing it was Seraphina's gift. It's a replica, Theron continued, his voice growing stronger with certainty. A sophisticated one, embedded with compulsion magic and life-draining curses. The craftsmanship is extraordinary, whoever made this studied the original extensively. But it's fundamentally different in nature. The real pendant. His voice shook with anger now. The real pendant was probably swapped years ago. Whoever wears this believes they're being protected, believes they're using blessed power. But in truth, they're slowly being consumed. He turned to face me fully, and there was profound sadness in his clouded eyes. Every time you've used it to defend Princess Elara, every time you've trusted its guidance, you've been feeding your life force into a trap. The visions it shows you? Compulsion magic designed to make you willing to sacrifice yourself. The warnings it gives? Just enough truth to keep you dependent. The warmth you feel? Your own life essence being slowly drained away and stored for someone else to claim. Horror crashed over me like a frozen wave. 5 years. 5 years of trusting, using, relying on what I thought was divine blessing, but was actually poison disguised as protection. Every act of courage, every moment of using the pendant's power to save Elara from danger, had been feeding into a trap I never saw coming. But it saved us, I whispered, my mind reeling. The assassination attempts, the political coups, the poisoned food I detected, traps I sensed, it warned me, it helped me protect. It gave you just enough truth to keep you dependent, Theron said sadly, his voice heavy with sympathy. Real information mixed with manipulation. That's how the best traps work, they give you reasons to trust them. The pendant probably enhanced your natural abilities, the diluted first monarch blood you carry, the guardian instincts you've developed, while slowly draining your life essence. A perfect trap for a guardian too devoted to question divine gifts. I felt sick. All those times I'd clutched the pendant for guidance. All those moments I'd thanked Seraphina for the blessing. All those nights I'd pressed it to my heart and felt comforted by its warmth. I'd been embracing my own slow death. Aldrich's face had gone white with rage, his royal power filling the room with oppressive weight. Warriors around the hall dropped to their knees instinctively, overwhelmed by the force of his fury. Who did this? As if summoned by the question, the palace bells began tolling in alarm. Not the pattern for approaching armies, 3 bells, pause, 3 bells. This was different. Sharp, rapid, discordant. The pattern for infiltration, for enemies already inside the walls, for betrayal. Commander Petra sprinted to the window, then spun back with her blade drawn, her scarred face pale. The western gate is opening. Someone's letting Casimir's forces in early. We're being betrayed from within. Seal the hall. Aldrich commanded, his voice cutting through rising panic. Get Elara to the safe room. Petra, rally the inner guard. Thaddeus, activate the emergency wards. Everyone else. The massive doors to the great hall exploded inward. Ancient oak 3 feet thick, reinforced with iron and blessed by the first monarchs themselves, shattered like glass. Splinters flew inward like arrows, forcing everyone to duck. Smoke billowed through the opening, and through it strode an army. Duke Casimir led the charge, flanked by 50 warriors in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. His face was twisted with righteous fury, his sword already drawn and dripping with blood, probably from the guards who'd been defending the western gate. But it wasn't Casimir who made my blood freeze in my veins. It was the woman beside him. Identical to Isabeau in every way. Same angular face, same cruel smile, same predatory grace in every movement. But where Isabeau's eyes had been emerald, striking but natural, this woman's eyes were black as midnight, swimming with forbidden magic that made my skin crawl. Power radiated from her like heat from a forge, dark and hungry and wrong. Hello, brother-in-law, she purred, her voice a twisted echo of the dead queen. Did you miss me? Or should I say, did you miss my sister? Aldrich's sword was in his hand instantly, positioning himself between the intruders and Elara. His eyes widened with recognition, then narrowed with disbelief. You're dead. Isabeau's twin sister, Morgath, died 20 years ago in a dark magic accident. The records lie, Morgath interrupted, stepping fully into the hall with confidence that spoke of absolute power. Behind her, Casimir's warriors fanned out, surrounding the council members. More warriors poured through the shattered doors, cutting off escape routes. I didn't die. I was exiled for practicing dark magic, for refusing to accept my place as the weaker twin, for demanding power that wasn't mine to claim. My dear sister got everything, beauty, status, the chance to marry a king, while I was cast out for daring to reach beyond my station. She walked forward slowly, each step deliberate, her black eyes scanning the room before settling on me with disturbing intensity. So I waited. Learned. Grew strong in arts that would make the mountain gods weep. Blood magic, soul binding, curse crafting. I became everything our family feared and more. And when my dear sister wrote to me 5 years ago, begging for help with her treasonous little plot to put her bastard daughter on the throne, she smiled, showing teeth. I saw an opportunity. I felt pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity, like a puzzle I'd been staring at for years finally revealing its terrible picture. You gave Isabeau the plan, I said. You told her how to kill Elara. I told her how to make it look like an accident, Morgath corrected, circling closer like a predator studying prey. Pushed from a cliff, body carried away by the wind. Tragic, but believable. What I didn't account for. Her black eyes fixed on me with something like fascination. Was a desperate servant with hidden bloodline catching her midair. The pendant, Octavius said, horror dawning on her face. You swapped it after Isabeau's execution. You've been poisoning Mira for 5 years. Not poisoning, Morgath said pleasantly, as if discussing the weather. Harvesting. There's a difference. Poison kills quickly, messily, obviously. What I did was elegant. Every time she used the fake pendant's power, every act of courage and protection, fed life essence into a vessel I could claim later. The curse was designed to accumulate power slowly, storing it like honey in a jar. And once she'd fed enough, once the pendant had drained her nearly dry. She gestured, and the pendant around my neck began to glow with sickly green light that made everyone in the hall step back instinctively. I could activate the transfer curse. Her guardian bond with Elara would snap to me. I'd become her protector, her trusted mentor, the one person who could get close enough to finish the job without anyone suspecting. After all. She smiled coldly. Who questions a guardian? The implications crashed over me like an avalanche. Morgath had spent 5 years positioning this trap. 5 years of patience, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And I had walked right into it, so focused on protecting Elara that I'd never thought to question the pendant's authenticity. I clawed at the pendant with desperate fingers, trying to tear it off, but it had fused to my skin, the chain melding with my flesh in a way that made my stomach turn. It burned like acid where it touched, green light pulsing in rhythm with my failing heartbeat. Pain consumed me, radiating outward from my chest. And through it, I felt something fundamental tearing, the vow I'd made 9 years ago, the bond I'd forged with Elara, the connection that had defined my entire life, being ripped away strand by strand. It felt like someone was pulling out my soul with fish hooks. No. Elara's scream echoed through the hall with power that shook the walls. The 9-year-old princess moved with speed that shocked everyone, racing toward me with her small hands outstretched, her violet eyes blazing with light, pure, divine, the sacred blessing of the first monarchs manifesting in her rage and fear. Let her go. She's mine. My guardian. You can't have her. Elara, stay back. Aldrich lunged for his daughter, but Casimir's warriors blocked his path, forcing the king into combat. Even as his child ran toward danger, blades clashed, and suddenly the hall erupted into violence. Elara reached me and grabbed the pendant with both hands, her royal blood flaring golden bright. The moment her skin touched the cursed artifact, something remarkable happened. The pendant shattered. Not slowly, not gradually, but in one explosive burst of light that threw everyone nearest to the ground. Golden divine power versus dark corrupted magic, and the child's pure connection to the first monarch's blessing tore through Morgath's curse like sunlight through shadow. The pendant's chain snapped, fragments of cursed metal and stone scattering across the floor, hissing and smoking as the conflicting magics consumed each other. The backlash was devastating. Energy exploded outward in a shockwave that cracked the stone floor, extinguished torches, and sent warriors stumbling. Elara and I were thrown backward by the force. But I twisted midair with that same impossible speed from 9 years ago, the speed that had caught a falling princess and changed everything. I caught Elara mid-flight, turned my body to absorb the impact, and crashed into the stone wall with bone-cracking force. Pain exploded through my left side, ribs cracking, shoulder dislocating, head bouncing off stone. But Elara was unharmed in my arms, cushioned by my body, protected even as the world spun and darkness crept in at the edges of my vision. Still catching you, I coughed, blood on my lips, my vision blurring. Still keeping my promise. You've ruined everything. Morgath shrieked, her composure finally breaking, revealing the madness underneath. Her face contorted with rage, black magic crackling around her hands like lightning, building toward something catastrophic. The temperature in the hall dropped 10 degrees, frost forming on stone. 5 years. 5 years of planning, of patience, of careful manipulation. If I can't claim the guardian bond, if I can't kill the heir through subtlety, then I'll do it the old-fashioned way. Dark fire began to coalesce between her palms, flames that burned black and purple, that made the air itself scream. I'll burn this entire palace to the ground and pick through the ashes for her bones. She raised her hands, dark fire gathering into a massive sphere of destruction, and Casimir's warriors charged forward in a coordinated assault. The great hall erupted into complete chaos, Aldrich's guards clashing with invaders, steel ringing against steel, blood splashing on ancient stone, Petra shouting commands, trying to organize a defense against overwhelming odds, Octavia's blade singing through the air as she protected Elder Thaddeus, council members fighting desperately with whatever weapons they could grab. But I, broken and bleeding on the floor with Elara clutched to my chest, felt something else awakening. The pendant had shattered. The curse had broken. And in breaking, it had released 5 years' worth of stolen life essence back into my body in one overwhelming flood. Not the slow poison I'd been fed, not the corrupted magic that had been draining me, but pure power, raw, unfiltered, blazing with the rage of a guardian who'd been used, manipulated, betrayed, nearly destroyed. My black hair began to glow like moonlight made solid. My weak common blood, enhanced by diluted First Monarch heritage and years of unwitting sacrifice, suddenly wasn't weak anymore. The life essence that Morgath had stolen and stored, intending to claim for herself, had nowhere else to go. When the curse broke, it flooded back into my body, transforming everything it touched. It surged, evolved, became something the kingdom had never seen, a guardian blessed directly by the mountain gods themselves as reward for 9 years of unwavering devotion and sacrifice. The transformation burned through me like silver fire, rewriting my very nature, elevating me from common-born to something entirely new. Pain turned to power. Weakness became strength. And I understood, in that moment of transformation, what I'd truly become. Not just a protector, not just a guardian, but a living embodiment of the oath I'd sworn 9 years ago. I stood slowly, setting Elara behind a pillar with gentle hands. "Stay there, little princess. Let me show you what real guardians do when someone threatens their charges." I moved, not with the enhanced speed the fake pendant had given me, not with borrowed power or stolen blessings, but with my own strength, earned through years of protection, crystallized into something pure and unstoppable. I became a blur of silver light, crossing the hall faster than thought, intercepting Morgath's dark fire with my bare hands. The magic screamed as it met something it couldn't corrupt, faith made manifest, love transformed into armor, a guardian's vow given physical form. The dark fire struck my palms and simply stopped, frozen in midair, crackling and hissing against a barrier that shouldn't exist. "You made one mistake," I said, my voice resonating with power that made the stone walls tremble and dust fall from the ceiling. "You thought guardians were weak because we serve. You thought devotion was the same as submission. You thought loving someone enough to die for them made us vulnerable." I pushed forward, and the impossible happened. The dark fire began to retreat. Step by step, inch by inch, I drove Morgath's magic back through sheer force of will. Silver light emanated from my body, growing brighter with each step, washing over the hall like a cleansing tide. "But guardians aren't weak," I continued, my eyes blazing with divine fury. "We're the strongest people in any kingdom. Because we fight not for ourselves, but for those who cannot fight alone. We endure not because we're forced to, but because we choose to. We sacrifice not from weakness, but from strength. And we never, ever break our promises." Silver light exploded from my body like a supernova, washing over the entire hall in a wave of purifying energy. Dark magic burned away like mist before the sun. Casimir's warriors stumbled back, their corrupted weapons crumbling to rust, their dark armor cracking and falling away. The very walls seemed to sing with the return of ancient blessings that Morgath's presence had suppressed. The false priestess's black eyes went wide with terror as she finally understood what she was facing. Not a servant, not a common-born woman, but something that the mountain gods themselves had forged from devotion and sacrifice. A true guardian, elevated to divine status, unstoppable in defense of her charge. "You can't do this," Morgath gasped, stumbling backward as her magic failed for the first time in 20 years. "You're just a servant, just a—" "I'm the guardian of the Thornwood bloodline," I interrupted, my voice ringing with absolute certainty. I'm the woman who caught a falling princess midair 9 years ago and vowed to keep her safe. I'm the one who endured your curse for 5 years and survived. I'm the one who still stands between your darkness and my princess. I smiled, fierce and beautiful and utterly terrifying. And I'm the last thing you'll ever see. The battle that followed would be sung about for generations. I fought like a force of nature, protecting Elara with one hand while coordinating the defense with the other. My newly awakened guardian power let me move with impossible speed, be in 3 places at once, turn aside attacks before they landed. I didn't kill unless absolutely necessary, but I was merciless in defense, blocking every attack aimed at the princess, countering every spell Morgath desperately cast. Aldrich fought beside me, and somewhere in the chaos of battle, we moved as one. King and guardian, father and protector, 2 souls defending the same precious life. He covered my left side when my injuries made me stumble. I protected his back when warriors tried to flank him. We fought like we'd been training together for years, like our souls knew each other's movements. Octavia was magnificent, her blade dancing through enemies with lethal grace. Elder Thaddeus wielded magic that surprised everyone, revealing powers he'd kept hidden for decades. Commander Petra rallied the palace guards, turning defensive positions into aggressive counterattacks. But the tide truly turned when the servants joined the fight. All across the palace, common-born men and women who'd been invisible their entire lives saw me glowing with divine power and understood, strength came in forms they'd never been taught to recognize. They poured into the hall with kitchen knives, with brooms, with whatever they could grab, and their sheer numbers overwhelmed Casimir's elite warriors. A servant warrior was a contradiction the invaders had never prepared for. They fell to unexpected attacks, to people who fought with the fury of the long-oppressed finally given permission to be strong. Morgath fought desperately, her dark magic growing more chaotic as her carefully laid plans crumbled. She tried curse after curse, each one deflecting harmlessly off my silver aura. She summoned demons from the void, and I banished them with a word. She attempted to possess Elara directly, and I simply stepped between them, my guardian bond forming an impenetrable wall. "Why won't you die?" Morgath screamed, her beautiful face twisted with fury and disbelief. "I planned this perfectly. I studied for 20 years. I waited. I schemed. I sacrificed everything." "That's your mistake," I said quietly, advancing steadily. "You sacrificed for power. I sacrificed for love. And love is always stronger." I struck, not with magic or blade, but with pure guardian power channeled into a single touch. My palm pressed against Morgath's chest, right over her heart, and silver light poured forth like water from a broken dam. Morgath's dark magic imploded, turning inward, consuming itself. She'd built her power on stolen life force, on corrupted blessings, on violations of sacred law. And when confronted with something genuinely pure, something that had been freely given and divinely blessed, her magic had no defense. The dark mage collapsed, her black eyes fading to gray, her body aging rapidly as years of forbidden magic extracted their price all at once. In seconds, she went from beautiful and terrifying to ancient and withered, her body crumbling to ash before she even hit the ground. When Morgath finally fell completely, consumed by her own dark magic as it rebounded from my silver shield, Duke Casimir dropped his sword with a clatter that echoed through the suddenly silent hall. The remaining warriors, seeing their dark mage defeated and their cause lost, surrendered one by one. It was over. As the sun rose over Thornhaven, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Aldrich stood in the blood-stained great hall with his daughter safe in his arms and me swaying with exhaustion beside him. My black hair had stopped glowing, but there was still something otherworldly about me now, something that made everyone who looked at me instinctively lower their eyes in respect. Commander Petra was binding prisoners with efficient brutality. Octavia was coordinating healers, her armor dented but her spirit unbroken. Elder Thaddeus was already calling for scribes to record this night for the kingdom's history, the night a servant became a guardian and saved them all. "Is it over?" Elara asked, her voice small and scared despite everything. "Is Mira going to be okay?" "I'm okay," I promised, though I could barely stand. The transformation had burned through me, left me hollow and aching in ways that would take weeks to fully heal. But I was alive. Elara was safe. That was all that mattered. I'm always okay as long as you're safe. That's not good enough, Aldrich said firmly. He set Elara down gently and turned to face me fully, his violet eyes intense with emotion he'd been holding back for years. You nearly died again. You've been dying slowly for 5 years, and none of us saw it. You've sacrificed everything, over and over, asking nothing in return. And I. His voice broke. I can't lose you, Mira. Elara can't lose you. The kingdom can't lose you. I'm a guardian, I said simply, though tears were forming in my eyes. This is what we do. We protect. We sacrifice. Then be my guardian, Aldrich interrupted, and suddenly he was kneeling before me. This powerful king, victor of 100 battles, ruler of Thornhaven, dropping to his knees in front of a common-born woman, in front of his entire court. Not just Elara's. Be my partner, my queen, my equal. Help me rule this kingdom. Help me raise our daughter, yes, our daughter, because you've been her mother in every way that matters since the night you caught her falling. Gasps rippled through the assembled nobles. Some shocked, some delighted, some scandalized. But no one spoke, because this was clearly a moment that would shape history. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Aldrich, I'm not. I'm just. You're extraordinary, Aldrich interrupted passionately. You're brave and brilliant and stronger than anyone I've ever known. You transformed from servant to guardian through sheer devotion. You survived a 5-year curse that should have killed you in months. You've raised my daughter, defended my kingdom, and I've loved you for years now, watching you with Elara, seeing how you transform every life you touch, witnessing your courage and compassion and unwavering strength. He pulled a ring from his pocket, simple silver embedded with moonstones that glowed softly in the dawn light. I should have said something sooner. Should have courted you properly. But I'm saying it now, in front of everyone, so there can be no doubt. His voice strengthened, carrying through the hall. Mira of the dark hair, guardian of the Thornwood bloodline, savior of my daughter and my kingdom, will you be my queen? Will you let me spend the rest of my life ensuring you never have to sacrifice alone again? The hall had gone absolutely silent. Every noble, every servant, every warrior stood frozen, witnessing something unprecedented. A king kneeling before a common-born woman, a ruler proposing to a guardian. Tradition and hierarchy crumbling in the face of genuine love and respect. I looked down at this king kneeling before me, offering me everything. Then I looked at Elara, who was bouncing excitedly, her violet eyes shining with hope and joy. Then at Octavia, who was openly crying with happiness. Then at all the people, noble and common, warrior and servant, who were watching with expressions ranging from shock to joy to something like hope. I thought about the invisible servant I'd been 9 years ago, the woman who'd gathered herbs and scrubbed floors and was expected to bow her head and accept whatever life gave her. I thought about catching a falling princess and making a vow that changed everything. I thought about 5 years of being slowly poisoned while believing I was blessed. I thought about transformation and sacrifice and the strange, winding path that had led me to this moment. I caught a falling princess 9 years ago, I said softly, my voice thick with emotion. And I've been falling ever since, falling in love with her, with this kingdom, with you. I never thought I deserved any of this. Never thought a common-born woman could stand beside a king as an equal. But maybe. I smiled through my tears. Maybe that's exactly what this kingdom needs. A queen who remembers what it's like to be powerless, so she never forgets to protect those who are. I took the ring from his hand, sliding it onto my finger. Yes, Aldrich. I'll be your queen, your guardian, your mate, your equal. And together. My smile widened. Together, we'll make sure no one ever falls alone again. The hall erupted in cheers and celebration, a sound so loud and joyous it could be heard for miles. Warriors cheered, servants cheered. Even the prisoners being held for judgment found themselves swept up in the moment. Aldrich stood, pulling me into his arms despite my injuries, kissing me with a passion that had been building for years. Elara threw herself at both of us, wrapping her small arms around our legs, laughing and crying at the same time. Octavia joined the embrace, then Elder Thaddeus, then Commander Petra, until half the hall was in one massive, joyful group hug. "Does this mean Mira is my real mother now?" Elara asked hopefully, looking up at us with those sacred violet eyes. "If she'll have you," Aldrich said, though his tone made it clear he already knew the answer. I knelt despite my broken ribs, cupping Elara's face in my hands. "I've been your mother since the day I caught you, little princess. I just didn't have the title to match. But now..." I smiled. "Now it's official. You're stuck with me forever." "Good," Elara said firmly. "Because I'm never letting you go." The coronation happened 3 weeks later, after the wounded had been healed and the palace had been repaired. The entire kingdom gathered in the great hall, nobles and servants, warriors and healers, people from every province and every class. I stood on the dais in robes of midnight blue and silver that seemed to glow with their own light. I'd fully recovered from my injuries, and the transformation into a guardian had left permanent changes. My black hair was longer, shinier, almost luminescent. My eyes, once plain gray, now held flecks of gold. I moved with a grace that made people stop and stare, not because I was trying to draw attention, but because divinity couldn't help but shine through. But despite all the changes, I was still fundamentally me. Still the woman who'd spent 9 years protecting a child with fierce devotion. Still the guardian who'd endure anything for those she loved. Elara stood beside me, holding my hand, dressed in formal robes that marked her as heir. But she looked far more interested in making sure I didn't disappear than in the ceremony itself. Every few minutes she'd squeeze my hand, just checking, and I'd squeeze back reassuringly. "By sacred law, by ancient right, by the covenant of first blood," Aldrich declared, his voice carrying through the hall with royal authority, "I declare Mira of the dark hair to be elevated from commonborn to the rank of guardian queen. She will serve as my mate, as mother and protector to Princess Elara, and as Queen of Thornhaven. She will have voice in all council matters. She will have authority to make royal decrees. And she will be honored as the one who saved this kingdom when all others failed or stood aside." He turned to face me directly, his violet eyes, so like his daughter's, filled with love and respect and promise. "You made a vow the night my daughter was born," he said quietly, "just for me, though everyone heard in perfect silence. You kept it when it would have been easier, safer, wiser to look away. You caught her when she fell. You caught her again when darkness tried to claim her. And in doing so, you caught an entire kingdom that was falling apart. We owe you everything, Mira. And I promise you, you will never be invisible again. You will never sacrifice alone again. You will never doubt your worth again." He lifted a crown, not the heavy, ornate queen's crown that Isabeau had worn, but something new, something Elder Thaddeus and the priestesses had forged specifically for me. It was made of silver, blessed by moonlight, set with stones that glowed with the same divine light as my transformation. It was lighter than traditional crowns, designed for a guardian who needed to move quickly, to fight when necessary, to be practical above all else. But it was unmistakably royal, unmistakably powerful. Aldrich placed it on my head with reverent care. "I crown you Mira, guardian queen of Thornhaven, protector of the Thornwood bloodline, mother to the heir, and my beloved mate. May your reign be long, your wisdom deep, and your strength eternal." My eyes burned with tears, but I held them back, lifting my chin with dignity. "I just kept my promise, King Aldrich. And I'll keep making that promise every day for the rest of my life. To Elara, to you, to this kingdom. I'll protect what matters. I'll catch those who fall. And I'll never, ever let darkness win." "I know," Aldrich said softly, and then he smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his usually stern face. "That's why you're the only one I trust with all our lives." The crowd erupted in celebration, not just cheers, but a roar of approval that shook the rafters. And for the first time in my life, I stood before them as an equal, my voice joining theirs in celebration. No longer invisible, no longer silent, no longer powerless, no longer alone. I was queen. I was a guardian. I was mother and mate and protector. But more than any title, I was exactly who I'd always been, the woman who'd caught a falling princess and refused to let go. But that night, after the ceremonies ended and the crowds dispersed and the celebrations finally quieted, Octavia found me on the cliff balcony, the same cliff Elara had fallen from 9 years ago, the place where everything had begun. I stood at the railing, looking out over the kingdom, one hand resting on the stone where Isabeau had stood when she'd committed her terrible crime. The moon hung full and bright above, casting silver light over everything. "You're wondering why it all happened the way it did," Octavia said gently, joining me at the railing. "Why were you the one to catch her? Why the pendant chose you, or rather, why Morgath's trap worked so well on you specifically?" I nodded, my fingers tracing the stonework. "I understand the trap now. I understand Morgath's plan. But I still don't understand why I was there that morning 9 years ago. I almost didn't go to the ravine garden. I was supposed to be working in the kitchens, but something called me outside. Something made me stand in exactly the right place at exactly the right time." "Because you were always meant to be there," Octavia said. She pulled a small leather-bound book from her robes, old, worn, the pages yellowed with age. "After Seraphina died, I found her personal journal in her chambers. Aldrich never read it, too painful. But I did, searching for answers about why she'd had such strange visions before her death. And I found this entry, written 3 days before Elara was born." She opened the book to a marked page, handing it to me. "Read it." My hands trembled as I took the journal. The handwriting was elegant, flowing, but shaky in places, the writing of someone very weak, very sick, pushing through pain to record something important. "I dreamed again last night," the entry began. "The same vision I've had for 3 months now. My daughter will be in danger. Terrible danger. Someone close to the throne will try to end her life before it truly begins. I see her falling from a great height, screaming, and I cannot save her because I will already be gone. But the mountain gods showed me something else, showed me who will save her when I cannot. A girl with dark hair, a common-born woman with kind eyes and a pure heart. Someone invisible to the court, someone nobody would suspect of carrying ancient power in diluted form. I did research, looked through old records, traced bloodlines that the kingdom tried to bury. And I found her, Lyra's daughter, my half-sister's child. The shame our father tried to hide by sending Lyra to the servants' quarters and pretending she never existed. But blood doesn't lie. And Lyra carried the same first monarch lineage I do, just diluted by common heritage. Her daughter, my niece, though we'll never acknowledge the connection publicly, serves in the palace now. She gathers herbs in the ravine garden. She has no idea who she really is, what blood runs through her veins, what destiny awaits her. And that's good. That's necessary. Because if she knew, she'd doubt. She'd question. She'd think herself unworthy. But she is worthy. The mountain gods showed me. This girl will catch my daughter when she falls. She'll protect her when all others fail. She'll sacrifice everything, endure unimaginable trials, and never break her vow. And someday, if the gods are kind, she'll be recognized for what she truly is. Not a servant, but a guardian. Not common-born, but a queen. I'm leaving her my pendant, the real one, blessed by the first monarchs, imbued with protective magic. She'll need it. But more than that, I'm leaving her a legacy she doesn't know she carries. I'm trusting the mountain gods to guide her to the right place at the right time. And I'm praying that my daughter will grow up knowing she was loved by 2 mothers, the one who gave her life, and the one who saved it. My vision blurred with tears as I finished reading. I looked up at Octavia, my voice barely a whisper. Seraphina knew. She planned this. She saw what was coming. Octavia confirmed, her own eyes wet. Not all of it. She didn't foresee Morgath's involvement, or the cursed pendant, or how long the struggle would last. But she saw the core truth, that Elara would need you, that you were the only one who could save her. And she made sure you'd be in position to do it. But the real pendant, I said, confused. If Seraphina left me the real one, then when did Morgath swap it? That's what I've been investigating, Octavia said. She pulled out another object, a small velvet pouch. I found this hidden in Isabeau's old chambers, tucked behind a loose stone. The real pendant. Morgath never gave it to you. She must have intercepted it after Seraphina's death, before it could be properly transferred, and replaced it with her cursed version. You've been wearing the fake from the very beginning. She opened the pouch, and true moonlight spilled out. The pendant inside was similar to the one I'd worn for 5 years, but different in subtle, crucial ways. The silver was purer. The crest of Queen Seraphina was more detailed. And most importantly, it radiated warmth without hunger, blessing without cost. This is yours, Octavia said, lifting the pendant carefully. This is what Seraphina intended you to have. Your inheritance, your birthright, the protection you should have had all along. She fastened it around my neck, and the moment it settled against my skin, I gasped. Power flowed through me, not draining, not demanding, but giving, supporting, strengthening. Like a mother's embrace after a long absence. She loved you, Octavia said softly. My sister-in-law, your aunt, the queen who died bringing Elara into this world. She loved you without ever meeting you, because she saw your heart and knew it was true. She trusted you with her most precious treasure, and you honored that trust beyond anything she could have imagined. I touched the pendant with trembling fingers, feeling Seraphina's blessing wash over me, genuine this time, uncorrupted. I wish I could have known her. You do know her, Octavia said. You carry her bloodline. You protected her daughter. You became what she hoped you'd become. In a way, she lives on through you, through your courage, your sacrifice, your unwavering devotion to the oath you swore. She smiled. And now you wear her crown and sit on her throne and mother her child. She couldn't have asked for better. We stood together in comfortable silence, 2 women who'd been shaped by tragedy and triumph, looking out over a kingdom that was finally, tentatively healing. What happens now? I asked finally. Now? Octavia's voice filled with warmth. Now you live. You raise your daughter, yes, she's your daughter now, in every way that matters. You rule beside your mate. You protect this kingdom from threats both obvious and hidden. You became the Queen Seraphina knew you could be, strong but compassionate, powerful but kind, royal but never forgetting where you came from. She put her arm around my shoulders. And when Elara takes the throne someday, when she becomes the greatest ruler our kingdom has ever known. Her voice went soft with emotion. She'll remember that it was her mother, the invisible servant with thornwood blood, who caught her midair and refused to let go, who taught her that true strength lies not in power, but in promises kept. 5 years later, 14-year-old Elara stood in the training yard, her violet eyes serious as she watched younger children practice their forms. She'd grown tall for her age, already showing the poise and presence of the queen she was becoming. But more than physical grace, she'd developed the quality her birth mother had possessed, that quality that made people listen when she spoke, trust when she led, follow when she called. At her side, her baby sister Lyra, daughter of Aldrich and me, born 3 years after we'd wed, practiced her first sword forms with enthusiastic clumsiness. She was 5 years old, all wild dark hair and violet gold eyes, a perfect blend of her parents' bloodlines. She giggled as her wooden sword went flying, landing in a flower bed. You're being too hard on them, I said, appearing beside my elder daughter with the silent grace I'd never lost. Queen now, mother to 2 children, maid to a king who adored me, but still fundamentally the same person who'd caught a falling princess 14 years ago. I wore the crown Seraphina had intended for me, the real pendant against my heart, and robes that marked my status. But my eyes still held that same kindness that had made a dying queen trust me with everything. I'm being realistic, Elara corrected, but her voice was fond. She'd inherited her father's seriousness, but tempered it with my compassion. They need to be ready for anything. The kingdom still has enemies. Nobles who resent our reforms. People who think common-born shouldn't wear crowns. People who challenge our rule because they think mother, because they think you shouldn't be queen. She never called me anything but mother now. Never qualified it with adoptive or guardian or step. I was her mother. Period. And anyone who suggested otherwise faced the full fury of an heir who would tolerate no disrespect to the woman who'd saved her life. I taught you that protection matters more than perfection, I replied gently. And that sometimes the weakest person becomes the strongest guardian. Elara smiled, that same smile that had trusted me 14 years ago in the darkness of hidden walls, when she was tiny and terrified and I was the only safety she knew. You were never weak, mother. Even when everyone said you were, even when you thought you were, the mountain gods knew better. Father knew better. And I always knew better. Neither are you, I said softly, reaching up to touch her face. She'd grown taller than me now, but she still leaned into my touch like she had as a small child. Even when darkness tried to convince us otherwise. Even when curses and plots tried to destroy us, we survived. We're still here, still standing, still protecting each other. Aldrich joined us, effortlessly scooping up Lyra, who immediately demanded help finding her sword. Papa, I lost it in the flowers. Then you find it yourself, little star, Aldrich said, but his voice was infinitely gentle. Fatherhood had softened him in ways that kingship never could. A warrior who loses her weapon must learn to recover it. Lyra pouted but scrambled down, running off to search through the flower beds with dramatic determination. The family stood together in the sunlight, whole and healthy, surrounded by a kingdom that had learned hard lessons about judging strength and valuing guardians. The reforms Aldrich and I had implemented over the past 5 years had transformed Thornhaven. Commonborn could now own property, serve in government, train as warriors if they chose. The rigid hierarchy that had kept people invisible and powerless had been dismantled, replaced with a system that valued contribution over birth. It hadn't been easy. There had been resistance, protests, even 2 assassination attempts against me from traditionalists who thought I was destroying the natural order. But I'd survived all of it, protected by my guardian power, supported by Aldrich, and defended fiercely by Elara, who'd made it very clear that anyone who threatened her mother would face her. Do you ever think about that day? Aldrich asked quietly, pulling me close with his free arm. When she fell. Every day, I admitted. It's the day that defines everything. When I learned that catching someone isn't about physical strength, but about being willing to try even when falling seems inevitable. When I learned that invisible doesn't mean powerless. When I learned that the greatest love is choosing to stand in the path of destruction for someone else. I looked at my family, my mate, my daughters, my kingdom. We all fall sometimes. Life pushes us from cliffs. Curses drain us slowly. Darkness tries to consume us. The blessing isn't in never falling. It's in being caught by those who refuse to let us break. And it's in catching others when they fall, even when it seems impossible. Elara stepped closer, wrapping her arms around me in a spontaneous hug. At 14, she was almost as tall as her father, but she still hugged me like a child seeking comfort. Thank you for catching me, mother. That day and every day since. Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for being stronger than anyone knew. Thank you for showing me what real power looks like. I held her tight, this girl who'd become a young woman, this princess who'd one day be queen, this child I'd saved with impossible speed and unwavering love. Tears pricked my eyes as I remembered that terrible morning, the scream, the fall, the desperate lunge, the moment my hands closed around her, and I knew I'd do anything, sacrifice anything, endure anything to keep her safe. Thank you for being worth catching, I whispered. Thank you for breaking the curse when I was too blind to see it. Thank you for loving me even though I'm not your blood mother. Thank you for making every sacrifice, every scar, every tear worth it. You are my blood mother, Elara said fiercely. Blood isn't just what you're born with. It's what you share through love and sacrifice and choice. Your blood saved me when mine tried to kill me. Your strength became mine. Your courage taught me how to be brave. You're more my mother than anyone else could ever be. Aldrich pulled us all into an embrace, awkward with Lyra now running back with her recovered sword, trying to join the hug while waving her wooden blade triumphantly, but perfect in its chaos and love and unity. The family that shouldn't have existed, that had been forged through tragedy and trial and tremendous love, stood together in the training yard while the sun painted the world in gold. The queen had pushed the king's daughter from the cliff. A servant had caught her midair. And now, 14 years later, that same servant, now queen, now mother, now guardian, stood surrounded by the family she'd fought for, the kingdom she'd saved, and the love she'd earned through promises kept. We all fall sometimes. But sometimes, if we're very lucky, someone catches us. And sometimes, if we're even luckier, we get to spend the rest of our lives catching others in return.